Everything changed when Elena's father suddenly fell ill. Doctors were puzzled, but he grew weaker day by day until he finally passed away when Elena was just 20. On his deathbed, he made her promise to stay strong and keep her heart kind. Yet the moment he was gone, Victoria's mask fell. She produced papers claiming the entire Harrington fortune belonged to her, leaving Elena with nothing. Overnight, the beloved daughter became a servant in her own home. She cleaned, cooked, and endured constant insults while Victoria and Lila lived in luxury, throwing lavish parties and buying endless designer clothes. "You're worthless now," Victoria would hiss. "Just a burden I can't wait to be rid of." Elena swallowed her pain, holding on to memories of her parents and finding small escapes in books at the public library when she could sneak away. One stormy evening, Victoria called Elena into the grand drawing room. Candlelight danced across Victoria's cold smile as she announced, "I've found the perfect way for you to finally contribute to this family. You're getting married." Elena's heart leapt with a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this could be her escape. But Victoria's next words crushed it completely. "Your groom is a homeless beggar named Alex who sleeps on the streets. The wedding is in 1 week." Elena fell to her knees, begging, "Please, why are you doing this to me?" Victoria laughed, savoring every tear. "Because I can. Because you remind me of everything I'm not. This marriage will dump you in the gutter where you belong, and I'll never have to see your face again." Lila clapped with glee, already imagining Elena begging for scraps. The week that followed was pure torment. Elena was locked in the house, her phone taken, her few remaining friends turned away at the gate. Guards watched her every move while Victoria spread lies to society that Elena was thrilled about her upcoming marriage. Elena spent nights crying into her mother's old locket, whispering, "I can't do this. I can't marry a stranger I've never even met." All she knew about Alex was that he wandered the city square in torn clothes, sharing whatever coins he collected with stray animals and hungry children. Some said he had kind eyes, but to Elena he represented the end of every dream she had ever dared to hold. The wedding day arrived under a heavy gray sky. The mansion's garden had been decorated with cheap flowers that already looked wilted. Guests invited by Victoria arrived in expensive cars, whispering behind their hands about the scandalous match. Elena was forced into a plain white dress made from old curtains, her hair pulled back severely. She felt like a lamb being led to slaughter as she walked toward the makeshift altar. There stood the beggar, tall, broad-shouldered, his face half hidden beneath a hood and scarf, clothes ragged and dirty. His blue eyes were the only thing visible, and they held a quiet intensity that unsettled her. The officiant began the ceremony in a bored voice. Elena's hands shook as she repeated vows she didn't mean. Alex's voice was low and steady as he echoed them, but she barely heard the words over the pounding of her own heartbroken pulse. Victoria sat in the front row sipping champagne, her eyes gleaming with victory. Lila filmed everything on her phone, already planning to share the humiliation online. The moment came to exchange rings, simple metal bands Victoria had bought for almost nothing. The officiant asked the groom to state his full name for the official record. Alex lifted his head, pulled back his hood, and spoke clearly into the stunned silence, "Alexander Vanderbilt." The name struck like lightning. Victoria's champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the stone path. Her face went deathly pale. Vanderbilt, the legendary billionaire family whose empire spanned continents, believed to have vanished after a massive betrayal years ago. Whispers exploded among the guests. Phones came out. Someone recognized the features now fully revealed: strong jaw, piercing eyes, the unmistakable Vanderbilt look. Victoria stumbled forward, voice cracking. "Impossible. You're a liar, a fake." But Alexander, met her gaze without flinching. Elena stared at him, confusion and a tiny spark of hope warring inside her. Alexander turned to her gently and said, "I'm sorry you had to go through this, Elena. But it was the only way to get close enough to prove what she did to your father, and to my family." Hidden lawyers stepped forward from among the guests, producing documents, recordings, lab reports showing slow poisoning. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Victoria's carefully built world was collapsing in front of her eyes, and Elena, still holding Alexander's hand, felt the first real glimmer of light after years of darkness. As chaos erupted in the garden, Elena stood rooted to the spot, her wedding gown catching the evening breeze while guests scattered and phones captured every second. Alexander kept her hand firmly in his touch steady and warm for the first time offering real comfort. Victoria screamed accusations, lunging toward them until security held her back. Lila dropped her phone and ran inside, sobbing. Police arrived within minutes, cuffing Victoria as evidence of fraud and murder was presented on the spot. Elena watched numbly as the woman who had tormented her for years was led away shouting threats that now sounded hollow and desperate. When the last car left and silence finally fell, Alexander guided Elena to a quiet bench beneath the old oak tree. She collapsed into tears, not just for today, but for every lonely night, every cruel word, every hope crushed. He listened without interrupting, letting her pour out years of pain. When the sobs quieted, he spoke softly. My family lost everything because of people like Victoria. Partners she worked with stole ideas, framed my father, and forced us into hiding. I've spent years gathering proof while living on the streets to stay invisible. But I noticed you, Elena, how you still helped others even when you had nothing. Your kindness in the darkest times, it gave me hope too. For the first time in years, Elena felt truly seen. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Courts restored the Harrington estate to Elena and uncovered the full extent of Victoria's crimes. Alexander's identity was confirmed, the Vanderbilt fortune and companies began resurfacing under his leadership. Yet he never treated Elena as a prize or a victim. They worked together, turning the mansion into a foundation for orphaned and abused children, honoring both their parents' memories. Elena found strength she never knew she had, speaking at events, designing programs, and slowly healing. Alexander stood beside her every step, patient and protective without ever smothering her newfound independence. One emotional evening at her father's grave, Elena whispered thank you to the stars, Alexander's arm around her shoulders. He proposed there under the moonlight, not with flashy jewels, but with the simple ring from their forced ceremony, now polished and engraved inside with the words, from rags to real. Elena laughed through happy tears and said yes. Their real wedding months later was small and heartfelt, surrounded only by people who truly cared. Elena walked down an aisle of rose petals in a gown she chose herself, eyes shining as she promised forever to the man who had saved her, and whom she had saved in return. Life settled into a rhythm of purpose and deep love. They faced challenges together. Old enemies of the Vanderbilt name tried sabotage, media storms swirled, but Elena's quiet courage and Alexander's steady resolve overcame every obstacle. They traveled, built schools, and eventually welcomed children of their own who grew up knowing that true wealth lies in compassion. Years later, sitting on the same garden bench, Elena told their little ones stories of a brave girl who once thought her life was over, only to discover it was just beginning. Alexander would smile and add, and sometimes the person you're forced to stand beside turns out to be the one you were always meant to find. Victoria's letter of regret arrived one day from prison, but Elena chose peace over bitterness, donating anonymously to programs helping women rebuild after manipulation and abuse. The mansion that once echoed with cruelty now rang with laughter and hope. Elena and Alexander proved that even the cruelest plans can unravel into the most beautiful beginnings when kindness and truth refuse to stay buried. So remember, no matter how dark things seem, hold on. The twist that changes everything might be closer than you think. True love and justice have a way of finding each other, even in rags at a forced altar. As the garden descended into utter chaos, guests scrambling with phones in hand and whispers turning to shouts, Elena remained frozen at the altar, her hands still clasped in Alexander's. Victoria's screams pierced the air as she tried to deny everything, but the hidden lawyers emerged calmly, laying out irrefutable proof, forged wills, poison traces in old medical samples, secret recordings of Victoria boasting about her plans. Police sirens grew louder until officers stormed in, placing Victoria and a hysterically crying Lila in handcuffs. For the first time in years, Elena watched the woman who had stolen her life being dragged away, powerless and defeated. When the last police car disappeared down the driveway and the mansion fell silent under the starry sky, Alexander gently led Elena to the old stone bench beneath the sprawling oak tree. She finally let go, collapsing into deep, wrenching sobs that carried every ounce of pain she had buried for so long. He sat beside her without a word, offering only his steady presence until the storm inside her began to quiet. Then he spoke, voice soft but clear. I know what it feels like to lose everything to someone like her. My family's empire was dismantled piece by greedy partners she once worked with. We lost homes, companies, even our name in public. I chose the streets on purpose, to stay invisible while I collected evidence. But through it all, I saw you, Elena. Even when you had nothing, you still slipped coins to homeless kids and fed stray cats. Your light never went out. That's why I knew I had to help you, and why I couldn't let her win. In the weeks that followed, the courts moved swiftly. The Harrington fortune was fully restored to Elena, and Alexander's true identity as the last Vanderbilt heir was confirmed beyond doubt. Billions that had been hidden or stolen began flowing back into his control. Yet he never once acted superior or distant. Instead, they worked side by side, transforming the cold mansion into a warm foundation for orphaned and mistreated children, a living tribute to Elena's father and Alexander's parents. Elena discovered strengths she never knew she possessed. planning programs, speaking to donors, designing safe spaces where no child would ever feel worthless. Alexander supported every decision, proud of her growth, protective without ever holding her back. One quiet evening, they visited her father's grave together. Elena laid fresh flowers and whispered, "We made it, Papa." The truth won. Alexander stood behind her, arms wrapped gently around her shoulders, letting her grieve and heal at her own pace. Later that night, under the same moonlit sky, he knelt in the garden and proposed, not with extravagant diamonds, but with the simple band from their forced wedding, now cleaned and engraved inside with the words, "From ashes to forever." Tears of joy streamed down Elena's face as she said yes, knowing this time the promise was real and freely given. Their true wedding months later was intimate and perfect. Only genuine friends filled the garden, now bursting with vibrant roses. Elena walked toward Alexander in a gown she had chosen herself, radiant and confident, her emerald eyes locked on his. Their vows were simple but profound. He promised to stand beside her in every storm, and she promised to share every sunrise with him. Laughter mixed with happy tears as they sealed their love with a kiss that felt like the beginning of everything good. Challenges still came. Old enemies of the Vanderbilt name attempted sabotage, tabloids spun wild stories, but Elena and Alexander faced them as equals. Her sharp intuition uncovered a corporate spy, his strategic mind neutralized threats. Together they turned scandals into opportunities, expanding their charities worldwide and inspiring countless people with their story of resilience. They traveled to places Elena had only read about in books, walked hand in hand on distant beaches, and built memories stronger than any fortune. Years passed in a blur of purpose and deepening love. They welcomed beautiful children who filled the mansion with laughter and chaos, growing up surrounded by stories of courage and kindness. On quiet evenings, Elena and Alexander would sit on that same stone bench, watching their little ones play where pain once ruled. Elena would tell them, once upon a time, a sad girl thought her story was over, but a kind stranger proved it was only just starting. Alexander would smile and add, and sometimes the person you're forced to marry turns out to be the love you were always meant to find. One day, a handwritten letter arrived from prison, Victoria expressing regret, asking for forgiveness. Elena read it calmly, then chose peace. She donated quietly to programs helping women escape manipulation, closing that chapter without bitterness. The mansion that once echoed with cruelty now overflowed with hope, proof that goodness can rebuild even the most broken places. Elena and Alexander grew old together, still holding hands, still choosing each other every single day. Their love proved that no matter how cruel the plan, truth and kindness have a way of turning the darkest twists into the brightest endings. So hold on when life feels hopeless. Your unexpected rescue, your real love, your greatest victory might be standing right beside you in the most unlikely disguise.